Just look at how we are running our campaigns. So Donald Trump is relying on support from billionaires and big corporations. And he is trading access in exchange for campaign contributions. On the other hand, we are running a people-powered campaign.
An enthusiastic crowd cheered and greeted VP Kamala Harris in Wisconsin yesterday in her first rally as the new Democratic nominee for president. Harris opening her public case against former President Trump, saying this election is going to be a choice between freedom and chaos. Here to join us now is former Illinois Congresswoman Cheri Bustos to talk about what's happening. Cheri, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's talk about what difference Kamala Harris is going to make now that she's in this race.
Well, yeah, we're only literally days into this, so time will tell. We've only got a few days till the election. We've got our convention that's going to be in Chicago here in about a month. So there's a lot that can happen between now and election day. Right now, we're riding a wave. Democrats are riding a wave. There's a level of excitement. It's a new candidate. This decision was made a lot faster than I would have guessed. I'm a Democrat who served for 5 terms in a Trump district. So the people I represented are more, middle of the road. That you could go Republican at the top of the ticket and go Democratic at the bottom of the ticket. And so my preference, frankly, would have been to see more of a process. I was for this idea of having these mini forums in the East, in the South, in the Midwest, in the West, have the top 5 Democrats kind of, talk it out and see what rises to the top. That said, this is the process that that has been chosen. And but there's a lot of excitement around Kamala Harris that, frankly, I'm a little surprised about it. And at the same time, as a Democrat, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and so the Democrats realizing we've got to unite together as fast as we can. But Harris is already facing attacks that center on her race and her gender. She's going to face criticisms that President Biden never did. Can a woman win in this election, in this country at this time? And what is it going to take to make that happen?
Well, as a woman, as a Democrat, as a person who served in a Trump district, I will say absolutely a woman can win. And even in a divided, politically divided country right now. But everything's got to go right. I think campaigns are a matter of mistake avoidance. There is no time to be making mistakes. I think she will handle the woman of color issue fine. In fact, I think if I were Kamala Harris and I had anything to do with her campaign, I would do a Barack Obama style of campaign. Talk about the future. Don't litigate the past. That said, she is a litigator. She is a prosecutor who is running against a guy who's been indicted almost countless times. And so she should use those skills and talk about the problems that a guy like Donald Trump has had. I think she will do that, but it's got to be a focus on the future. I would not be focusing on this first issue. I don't think that's what Americans are looking for. They're looking more for someone who can give hope to their children, to their grandchildren, to feel like that American dream is still within our grasp, and really be this hope, this candidate of hope, and forget about talking about the first. That is just not of interest to a good part of our country.
Okay, so what can Kamala Harris do that maybe Joe Biden wasn't able to accomplish? His biggest critics, besides talking about his age in his own party, have been against some of his immigration policy and what's going on with the Israeli war. Can she change the messaging? Because she's never really had this focus on herself. She's always been the vice president. What can she do now to maybe separate herself and reach out to other Democrats who weren't as happy with the direction the party was going in?
Well, first of all, she doesn't have the age issue that President Biden had. She is now the young one in this race. She can flip that on its head and talk about Donald Trump will be and is the oldest candidate running for president, the nominee in the history of our nation. So she can flip that on its head. We know as Democrats that the issue of choice and what women do with their own health care is a winning issue. We saw that in Kentucky with Andy Beshear winning that race for governor against all odds, really over that issue. We know that the fact that Donald Trump was responsible for overturning women's rights to make their own decisions on their own health care, the reproductive rights, that he is responsible for a very, very unpopular decision that was made at the Supreme Court. So she can also use that to her advantage. She is not afraid to go out there and talk about that issue, especially as a woman. That is a winning issue. As far as the border, I think part of that, let's see who she chooses to be her vice president or her running mate. And that could be an issue. For instance, if she chooses Mark Kelly, who's a senator for Arizona, from Arizona, that's an issue that he can tackle. And look, this has to be a ticket, meaning the presidential nominee and the vice presidential nominee that are going to play to what had been weaknesses for Democrats and turn those into strengths. And I think she has the ability to do that.
Former Illinois Congresswoman Cheri Bustos, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you for safety. I know that's key to you because you pulled aside so you could talk to us in your car, and we do appreciate that so much. Okay, you take care. Thanks for joining me.
You too. Bye-bye.